Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Ali and in today's video I thought we'd discuss whether chinchillas make fantastic pets or not. But first, some introductions. This here is Socks. This here is Andromeda. Andromeda is an Angora, so her fur does look slightly different from a normal chinchilla. And in this cage we have Fidget, Mirror, and Maluka, who is somewhere at the bottom here. Again, Mirror and Maluka are in fact Angoras. Now just a little heads up, I am going to be ripping off Clint's reptiles quite considerably in this video. I'm probably going to be using the same sort of categories he uses when he ranks pets. Handleability. Like most prey animals, chinchillas really don't usually like being handled too much and would much prefer running around on the floor on their own terms and not being restricted. However, if you get a chinchilla that has been socialised from a young age and isn't too skittish, they don't seem to mind it at all. I have many chinchillas that I can handle with ease. And in terms of actually handling them and holding them, it is quite easy. They don't have claws like rabbits, so they're not going to scratch you. The only thing I would say is that they are rodents and they have the potential to give you a nasty bite. However, in reality, that is quite a rare occurrence with a chinchilla. Now, chinchillas do nip and nibble from time to time. That is perfectly normal, but chinchillas giving a true bite, as in a bite that really is hard and pierces the skin and maybe draws blood, are actually quite rare to receive from a chinchillas. Most chinchillas do not do that. I would not let young children hold chinchillas, as chinchillas are quite fragile and can receive injury quite easily if they're squeezed or held incorrectly.
Jab, body blow, breakaway move. What's going on? What's she doing?
Bunny, I'm gonna love you forever and ever and ever.
So with younger children, it's always best supervised time and maybe you holding them and them just stroking them, because you really don't want to cause your chinchilla injury. Even though chinchillas don't normally like to be held, they are extremely inquisitive and will come over to you and interact with you, especially during out of cage time. For example, when I have my chinchillas out for playtime, they will often jump onto my lap, sit there for a few moments, and then off they go again, and they will use me as a climbing frame. If you get a chinchilla that's been socialised from a young age, the better they seem to be around people, and also the more time you spend with them anyway. The more you put in, the more you get out of a chinchilla. So just be patient and eventually they will come round to you and like you eventually. They are quite fast, so if you have a particular skittish chinchilla and you have them out for playtime, it can be hard to catch them. So just remember to have your chinchillas in a small area when you have them out for playtime, because it gets much easier to get them back in their cage if you have a small area for them to play in. Now, chinchillas, like all rodents, do poop and pee a lot. They don't have control over when they poop and pee, so you may get poop and pee on you when you are holding them. They're not likely to pee on you so much, they're more likely to poop on you. However, the poop is very small and hard, so it's quite easy to sweep away and clean. So it's not like you're getting squidgy poop on you, it is quite dry and hard, so it's not a big deal. But if you don't like the idea of being pooped on, then I guess don't own a chinchilla. Chinchillas can be litter trained for urinating, so in the cage you can have a litter box. However, in terms of poop, they poop everywhere and anywhere, and there's no litter training for that. Unfortunately, they'll just poop where they fancy. As I say, so overall, yes, they are they are prey animals and don't particularly like being handled. If you want a pet that you can sit and cuddle for hours and have on your lap, then a chinchilla is definitely not for you. But if you want an inquisitive, intelligent rodent that enjoys having a play around, enjoys interacting with you, then definitely a chinchilla is a good option. Chinchilla care is actually pretty simple. Their diet is super easy because chinchillas have extremely sensitive digestive systems. You don't want to give them too much variation in their diet at all. So what you need to give them on a day-to-day basis is good quality chinchilla pellets and good quality Timothy hay. And water, in terms of water, I know in parts of the world you have to give them filtered water because their tap water isn't safe, but in the UK you can give the chinchilla water straight from the tap. Just check with your own country whether you're able to give your chinchilla water straight from the tap or whether you have to filter it beforehand. Also, you can give your chinchilla treats, but you do have to give them really sparingly, so not every day they are a treat, and try to go for more healthier options rather than unhealthy options. So if you want to know about chinchilla treats, I do have a whole video on healthy chinchilla treats for chinchillas. Next thing you have to give to them is baths. Now, chinchillas do not wash in water, they don't bath in water at all. You shouldn't really get a chinchilla wet because their fur is too dense and it can not dry out properly, which can cause some health issues. So how a chinchilla cleans itself is it uses dust, and it has dust baths. So you have to give your chinchilla a dust bath every other day really. This is to keep the chinchilla's fur free from dirt and free from a build-up of oils. Chinchillas actually bathing this dust by rolling around in it is quite a pleasant experience to actually watch. It does create dust in your house though, if you have them in your house. It is going to create quite a big dust cloud when they have their dust. So just bear that in mind if you do have allergies. Their cage should be big enough for them to jump around in and display some of their natural behaviours. So lots of jumping and running and skipping, they should be able to do that within their cage. Now, the cage itself needs to be set up with lots of different ledges and lots of different surfaces for them to actually jump on. Now, what I mean by this is if you have a chinchilla cage with too many of just one type of surface, you can run into problems. For example, if you have a chinchilla cage that is purely fleece, everything is fleeced out to the max, you can have issues because that will mean that your chinchilla's feet remain soft. Now, why is chinchilla's feet remaining soft an issue? It's because they don't build up those natural calluses that can prevent injuries to the chinchilla's feet. So in the wild, they would be hopping from rock to rock and they naturally build up hard spots on their feet, which actually helps them prevent injury. Should they jump on something that's a little bit sharp, it won't injure their feet because their feet are now nice and hard. So some people see calluses as a bad thing. They're actually a really good thing in terms of chinchillas because they need to build up that natural callus in order so they don't end up injuring their feet. Now, often what I see with people that have entirely fleece cages is they have problems with the chinchilla's feet all the time. Chinchilla's feet get injured. Chinchilla's feet just start bleeding because their chinchilla's feet are too soft and can't handle any kind of abrasion to their feet. So you really need a lot of different surfaces in your chinchilla's cage. So wood lava ledges are good, lots of different types of surfaces, and lots of different shapes as well, because another issue can be if you have all flat surfaces and nothing else, your chinchilla can develop pressure sores on their feet, which is painful for the chinchilla. So really you want lots of different shapes of surfaces and lots of different types of surfaces in order to maintain the chinchilla's feet. Chinchilla's feet should be slightly hard underneath. So if your chinchilla's feet are hard and look kind of a little bit dry, don't worry too much, because that is perfectly natural. They're meant to build up those calluses. However, if your chinchilla's feet start cracking and bleeding, then that is an issue and you would need to seek professional help from a vet or try putting bag balm on them. If your chinchilla's feet are just hard, you don't want to moisturise your chinchilla's feet, because that is just going to cause problems, because they are meant to have hard calluses on their feet. Another thing they need in the cage is lots and lots of hides. Now the reason for this is that they live in burrows in the wild, so they need to have places where they can feel comfortable and secure. Some of my chinchillas use the hides, some of my chinchillas don't, but it's good to have them in your chinchilla's cage so that they can actually have that option of being really enclosed, which is what they like in the wild. You can also add things like hammocks to your chinchilla's cage and a chinchilla wheel. Now if you have a chinchilla wheel, it needs to be of a solid construction and it needs to be at least 15 inches in size. So those pet shop ones that you see aren't good for chinchillas. Next one is bar spacing. Bar spacing needs to be about 3/4 of an inch. Anything more than that, you may run into trouble with your chinchilla's legs getting stuck through the bars and potentially breaking their legs. If you have plastic in your cage, so if you have plastic bases or plastic shelves or plastic ladders, ramps, you need to either replace them completely with wood, or you need to cover them in fleece. Now why do I say this? It's because plastic, if it is chewed, can be extremely dangerous for a chinchilla. Chinchillas can actually ingest the plastic, and if they do, it can cause impactions. If they get an impaction, it can actually cause a slow and painful death. So you really want to avoid plastic at all costs. Next is bedding type. Now you can use fleece, or you can use aspen bedding, or you can use pine shavings if it's kiln dried pine. If it doesn't say it's kiln dried pine, don't buy it because it can be toxic, but if it says it's kiln dried pine, it is fine to use in your chinchilla's cage. I would avoid Carefresh and other paper-based bedding just because they can potentially chew it and ingest it, and then they can get blocked in their digestive system. Now some people would say if they're chewing their bedding, they've got more problems on their hand because, you know, mentally they shouldn't be chewing their bedding. You should be giving them lots of other things to chew, and that is the case, yes. Chinchillas are extremely funny little creatures. They may not ever chew your bedding. You may have many toys in your chinchilla cage, and they may still decide that chewing the bedding would be fun. It's a case of they may just decide one night to do that, and if they do, then you're risking your chinchilla's health. So I'll just say, if you can mitigate a risk, why not do it? Even if they don't chew it, just don't let them have that risk of chewing it. Now, chinchillas are herd animals and are quite social, so it is nice to keep them in pairs. Some chinchillas really don't like cage mates, but that is quite a rarity really. I mean, some do, some don't. It depends on the personality of your chinchilla. The good thing about chinchillas though is that you can keep them in same-sexed pairs, so you can keep females together and you can successfully keep males together. For example, Sox and Andromeda are both females. Fidget, Maluka and Mira are all females as well, and they all get along great. I also have several groups of males. I have Arnie, Ted and BK in a cage together, and they get on fabulously. So If you do have chinchillas together, you can keep them in same-sexed pairs, and that eliminates the need for neutering and spaying. Now, unlike rabbits, you don't need to neuter and spay chinchillas if they're in same-sex pairs. Neutering and spaying does nothing for their behaviour. So if you have a particular aggressive chinchilla, neutering or spaying the chinchilla will not fix that issue. It's just their personality. Really, there is absolutely, unlike rabbits, there is absolutely no health benefits to actually neutering and spaying a chinchilla. It's a major operation, and one thing chinchillas do not cope well with is stress. You really wouldn't want to put them under that stress unless it was absolutely necessary. Now, chinchillas do need time outside their cage for playtime, but it should always be monitored and never left unsupervised. Always supervised. It needs to be in a safe chinchilla area, so you need an area that's specifically designed to be chinchilla proofed, so nothing dangerous for them to actually nibble on or get under or accidentally escape into somewhere they shouldn't be. So no exposed wires, nowhere where they can accidentally, you know, climb up a chimney or, you know, anything like that. Nothing like that. It needs to be a nice safe area for your chinchillas. Now, chinchillas don't need hours and hours outside their cage for playtime. I would say 30 to 40 minutes is absolutely adequate and fine for them. No more than that really, because any more than that you can end up causing health issues for that chinchilla. Also, chinchillas under 6 months of age should have very limited time playing, no more than 10 minutes at a time, as baby chinchillas don't know when to stop and can really overexert themselves, and this can lead to seizures as well as heat stroke, which are both extremely dangerous. So you really want to limit it. If you are going to let them out for playtime, limit it. Now, I would say the next thing is probably the hardest part about owning a chinchilla and caring for a chinchilla, and that is keeping your chinchilla cool in the summertime. Because if you live in a country that can get hot during the summertime, but your houses don't usually come with aircon as standard, I'm looking at you, the UK, it can be a challenge to keep your chinchilla cool. So if you're living in a country where you don't have aircon in your house, but it does get hot in the summertime, then I would suggest investing in an aircon unit. I actually have 3 portable aircon units for my chinchillas, and I can tell you this now, if I did not have those aircon units, my chinchillas would be dead. All of them. This year in the UK we had the hottest weather ever on record, and the hottest day was actually in Lincolnshire where I live, so that was great. And I am telling you now, if I did not have those aircon units, all my chinchillas would have died. You need an adequate way of keeping your chinchillas cool in the summer, and putting ice packs in your chinchilla's cage and putting a few fans around isn't going to help when you have a prolonged heat wave like we had this summer. That is probably the hardest part of owning a chinchilla, is keeping them cool in the summertime, and it is a big thing that you need to consider when you own chinchillas. You need to be able to keep them cool. Hardiness. Chinchillas can live 20+ years, and that is a huge amount of time for a rodent. Most rodents don't actually live that long, and it all depends though on, one, the genetics of the chinchilla, and also the care you provide your chinchilla in the first place. I have plenty of chinchillas that have turned 16 this year, and I've had chinchillas in the past that have lived to their really late teens, and they can live, as I say, up to 20 years. So yeah, they are a really big commitment. A common problem with chinchillas is dental disease. It still affects many chinchillas, and it can be caused by genetics, and it also can be caused by incorrect care or from an injury. Whatever the reason, malocclusion is incurable. Now, you can treat the symptoms for a certain amount of time, which involves going to the vet regularly and having their teeth filed down, which can actually relieve some of the symptoms, but it does not cure mallow. Now, at some point, you do have to look at the quality of life your chinchilla is having and then make that hard decision to have them euthanized, because it is something that is, as I say, incurable and extremely painful for chinchillas. And unfortunately, we haven't managed to eradicate it, especially with the genetics. Now, good breeders, when they discover mallow within their line, they will completely stop breeding with their line. Unfortunately, there are some unscrupulous breeders out there that will actually continue to breed with sick animals, or animals that have been proven to have mallow in their line because they see the pound sign. Now, some chinchillas are very, very healthy. If you get your chinchilla from a genetically strong line, chances are is that you won't have that many health issues. For example, Arnie is 16 years old and has never seen a vet in his life, because I do not believe in taking your chinchilla for yearly health checks if your chinchilla is perfectly healthy, because chinchillas can actually get stressed out really, really easily. And honestly, giving them yearly health checks on a perfectly healthy chinchilla, it's just going to cause them an unnecessary stress. So Arnie has never seen a vet and he's 16 years old, and if your chinchillas are unwell, of course see a vet. If you notice something off with your chinchilla, then please see a vet, because yeah, chinchillas can actually hide their illnesses quite well. So if you see something that's even slightly off, it's probably worth going to see a vet to find out what's going on with them. Now, getting back to vets, you need to have a good exotic vet on hand, so someone that can actually deal with chinchillas, which can be quite tricky because not that many vets actually know what chinchillas are and know how to treat them. Fortunately, I do have a vet near me that does specialise in chinchillas. She actually owns chinchillas herself, so I do have someone that has a little bit of knowledge about chinchillas. But on the whole, you need to get a vet local to you that really knows their stuff about chinchillas. So, upfront costs of your chinchillas. So the actual physical cost for the actual chinchilla is normally between £80 and £150, depending on the mutations. If you're looking at something like an Angora chinchilla, then you can double or triple that. That's because they are still quite expensive. But on the whole, that is a general rule of thumb. Now, I know in the UK, I have noticed recently that some breeders seem to be charging a lot more for their chinchillas than that. They seem to be charging more around the £150 to £200 mark for basic chinchilla mutations. To me, that is far too expensive, and I have no idea what their motivation is when they charge that sort of price for a chinchilla, because the motivation to me is money rather than anything else, and that always gives me a bit of an icky feeling in my stomach. US, I'm not quite sure. I think they're slightly more expensive in the US. However, the UK is catching up quite fast with the price of chinchillas, I will have to say. So okay, so that's the actual price of the chinchilla. So far more expensive than rats or mice or hamsters and other rodents, even like guinea pigs, probably more expensive than guinea pigs, and certainly more expensive than rabbits as well. However, they do have an extremely long lifespan, so you really do get your money's worth with a chinchilla. Now in the UK, to get a decent sized cage, it's going to set you back between £200 and £300. Some cost slightly more, and it can cost more if you've got plastic in your cage, because then you need to either replace that or put fleece all over it. So that increases the actual cost of the chinchilla cage. But around the £200 to £300 mark is a good ballpoint figure for a decent sized cage. Now also you need things like food bowls, water bottles. They need water bottles. You cannot give them water bowls. Then you're looking at things like accessories like toys and hammocks and a wheel, and you're probably looking at around £50 to £100 mark for that. And then you're looking at the cost of an aircon unit. So that can cost between £300 and £500, and it is kind of a necessity if you live in a country, as I say, doesn't have aircon as standard and gets hot in the summer. That is, in total, is the initial cost of actually getting a chinchilla. So it can be quite pricey, it can add up. You can actually cut costs by looking at second-hand cages, but if you get a second-hand cage, just make sure it is disinfected thoroughly before you put your chinchilla in it. So what I suggest you don't do is, on Amazon they sell big cages that are bird cages. I actually have one for my budgies, and it is a decent sized cage and it could house a chinchilla. But I personally would never house a chinchilla in there. Although the price of it is a lot less than an actual chinchilla cage, it's not robust enough for a chinchilla. It's quite flimsy, and it's really designed for birds and not for chinchillas. So I would avoid those type of bird cages. I've seen a lot of people recently buying these as chinchilla cages, and I always think to myself, I'm not sure that is going to be entirely suitable for a chinchilla. Now, in terms of aircon units, you can often find them cheaper when they're off season. So in the winter time, if you look around, you can often find them quite discounted. Also, you can find people selling them online. So a lot of people this year probably bought portable aircon units for their houses because of the heat wave, and maybe they've decided they don't want them anymore, or they want to, now that the heat wave's over with, they want to actually sell it on. You can actually find aircon units cheaper if you search around, look for people that have bought them that don't want them anymore, or in the winter time they have discounted prices on them, so you may be able to pick yourself up a big bargain on a aircon unit. So yeah, there's things that you can do to cut down on the costs. So what's the verdict? Do chinchillas make fantastic pets? Yes, they do. If you're willing to invest in the right equipment for a chinchilla, and you're willing to give them the time and dedication they need, they can make absolutely awesome pets. They all have some very, very unique and cheeky personalities, and I love my chinchillas to bits. I couldn't imagine life without my chinchillas. So yeah, I think they personally make fantastic pets. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I am so grateful to have an audience, and thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you in another video soon. Goodbye for now.